So yesterday I was at the gym, just doing my little thing on the treadmill. I watch CNN when I work out. I have it on mute, but I have the captions on and I listen to music. So I listen to music and watch the news at the same time. All of a sudden, I'm like, what is going on in Russia? I'm seeing all these captions that say they're attempting to take down Putin. They've invaded. They're on their way to invade Moscow. They're going to take them down. And I'm seeing like liberal media just basically become excited about something that they didn't have all the answers to yet. This is another reason why I choose not to jump on camera as soon as a story breaks, even if I'm at home and I have the time to do so, because things can change in a 24-hour news cycle. So I decided to wait until more information was released. And I think that was a good idea. Now, it all started with this gentleman named Prigozhin. And we're going to get started with that first. What just happened in Russia? The Wagner crisis explained. Let's go on here. First things first, we're going to start with Prigozhin. Who is Prigozhin and why is he so important? 62-year-old Prigozhin had been a fervent supporter of Russia's war in Ukraine and is in charge of the Russian private military contractor known as the Wagner Group. Prigozhin had played a central role in the war, first by deploying his mercenaries on the front lines and later by recruiting heavily from prisons to bolster Moscow's depleted forces. Wagner led the onslaught in Bakhmut, which culminated in Putin declaring the city under Russian control, his first significant territorial gain since last summer. Americans may remember Prigozhin as the financier of the internet research agency, the Russian troll farm, that the Justice Department named in 2018 indictment over the interference of, I'm just going to leave that there, and weaponizing social media. So let's start with that. So you know who he is now. He was I guess we'll call him a former ally of Putin now. Let's go on to how this all started. Internal tensions between Prigozhin and Russian military leaders have been simmering for months over what Prigozhin believed were leadership failures within the military. Prigozhin accused Russian generals of stonewalling his ammunition requests and as a result, blamed them for his fighters dying in heaps in Ukraine. The dispute reached a boiling point Friday when Prigozhin accused Russian forces of conducting a strike on his fighters at an encampment in Ukraine. So let's go on. We're going to jump ahead here. What exactly did he do? Prigozhin said that he had taken control of the main Russian military command base in the southern region of Rostov and told two Russian military commanders that he would blockade Rostov and send his forces to Moscow unless he could confront his enemies. So keep that in mind. And that's Shoigu and Gerasimov. Prigozhin called for Russians to join Wagner against Shoigu and Gerasimov. He also accused the pair of lying about the war in Ukraine and undercounting casualties. This is not a military coup, but a march of justice. That's what Prigozhin declared. By Saturday, Prigozhin had agreed to turn his forces around and not to march to Moscow. But that was not the way it was explained yesterday. And this is part of the problem. So I want to show you the first one that I saw, and this was from Fox. Listen to how they explained what was going on yesterday, because media, they had to come back and they had to retract statements because they didn't have the correct information. Listen to this.
So first off, can you help kind of break down exactly what is going on here? Because there's a lot of questions and a lot of uncertainty.
Sure. So Prigozhin is the head of a private military corporation that was set up by Putin to do nasty things in various parts of the world that Putin didn't want to do officially. That's number one. Number two is that Prigozhin has been for months accusing the Russian Ministry of Defense of not supplying his troops with enough ammunition or support and getting them killed in the process. Number three is that he recently let out a video and has accused the Ministry of Defense of directly attacking his men and killing scores of them. After that, he declared that he would engage in what he called this March of Justice. And number four, where he's at now, is in the city of Rostov, which is in the south. It's about 300 miles south of Moscow. But critically, it is the headquarters of the military district that's controlling the war in Ukraine. And the interesting thing there is he took the city essentially without resistance. So that's where we stand right now on the ground.
Let's just pause there. So that piece right there where he said he took the city. Okay. Hold on to that. Hold on to that piece and we'll come back. Because that was the same message that came from a lot of media outlets yesterday. Oh God, Prigozhin has come in and he has seized Moscow. Prigozhin has come in and Russia has a civil war. It's internal conflict. They're fighting each other. He's coming in. He's taking Putin down. This is it. We win. I saw it all over social media yesterday. All over social media. They had to come back and give you an update because that wasn't really the case. So let's go on a little bit more and I'm going to show you when they have to come back and retract their statement.
So I guess, is this really a huge threat to Putin's power? Because that's what it sounds like he has even indicated at this point. Obviously, we know in situations like this, Putin kind of tries to downplay what's going on. But is it really a threat to his leadership?
It is a threat. It's a threat to his legitimacy, to his claim to be able to control what's going on in his country. It's important, though, for viewers to understand that a coup d'etat can't happen with force alone. Prigozhin needs political allies in the elite to support this move, and we simply don't know if he has them. He's seen as essentially as crazy and brutal, and he has never been understood to have had strong support in the elite. So that's a big question, as we go forward. Secondly, he's got a lot of men behind him, of course, and it's important to understand that most of these guys are convicts. And he follows sort of this code of the prison, this for absolute loyalty to him. And these convicts have no love lost for Putin because guess who put them in prison in the first place? So this is really a sticky situation for the Kremlin.
Okay. Now, they were not alone. Like I said, other media outlets came forward about this as well. Let's hear what Vladimir Putin actually had to say. Now, Fiorella, as you know, she is there actually on the ground in Russia. She posted this and she said, here is his full speech on the events that have unfolded with Prigozhin. We're going to have to read through the subtitles or the captions here, guys, okay? But listen to this.
Обращаюсь к гражданам России, к личному составу вооруженных сил, правоохранительных органов и специальных служб, к бойцам и командирам, которые сейчас сражаются на своих боевых позициях, отбивают атаки противника. Делают это героически. Знаю, сегодня еще раз ночью говорил с командующими всех направлений. Обращаюсь и к тем, кого обманом или угрозами втянули в преступную авантюру, толкнули на путь тяжкого преступления, вооруженного мятежа.
He referred to it as armed. You see this? I'm also addressing those who have been lured into this criminal enterprise and pushed onto the path of the gravest crime, armed mutiny. He referred to it as mutiny, what they were attempting to do here.
На путь тяжкого преступления, вооруженного мятежа. Россия сегодня ведет тяжелейшую борьбу за свое будущее. Отражает агрессию неонацистов и их хозяев. Против нас направлена фактически вся военная, экономическая, информационная.
This piece is important. Virtually the entire military, economic, and information machine of the West is directed against us. Now, another thing that some people did say yesterday, I don't have evidence of this, so I'm just going to be honest. Some things that people were saying yesterday is that they felt like this was completely initiated by the West, by the U.S. government. I don't know. Hopefully more information will come out about this later on, but right now I don't have any proof to back that up.
Сонная машина Запада. Мы боремся за жизнь и безопасность наших людей, за наш суверенитет и независимость, за право быть и оставаться Россией, государством с тысячелетней историей. Эта битва, когда решается судьба нашего народа, требует единения всех сил, единства, консолидации и ответственности, когда в сторону должно быть отброшено все, что ослабляет нас. Любые распри, которыми могут воспользоваться и пользуются наши внешние враги, чтобы подорвать нас изнутри.
See, even though it was an internal conflict, he is saying that, well, basically what he believes is that this was initiated externally.
И потому действия, которые раскалывают наше единство, это, по сути, отступничество от своего народа, от боевых товарищей, которые сражаются сейчас на фронте. Это удар в спину нашей стране и нашему народу. И именно такой удар был нанесен по России в 1917 году, когда страна вела Первую мировую войну. Но победу у нее украли. Интриги, склоки, политиканство за спиной армии и народа обернулись величайшим потрясением.
I'm going to mute this and it'll be easier for me to just read along. Intrigue, squabbles, politicking behind the back of the army and the people turned into the greatest shock. The destruction of the army and the collapse of the state and the loss of vast territories is what he's saying there. As a result of the tragedy, he talks about the Civil War, the Russians killed the Russian brothers and sisters, and various political adventurers and foreign forces that divided the country tore it apart and took advantage of it. So he's talking about what happened before in the past. We will not let this happen again, he says. We will protect our people and our state from any threats, including from internal treason, he referred to this as. And what we have come across is precisely treason. So that's the piece I really wanted you to see. Excessive ambitions and personal interests have led people to treason in our country and in our people, and to the cause for which soldiers and commanders of the Wagner Group, heroes who liberated Soledar and Artemovsk, the cities and the villages of Donbass, fought and gave their lives for, and for the unity of the Russian world. And then it goes on to say here, their name and glory will also be betrayed by those who are trying to organize a revolt, pushing the country to anarchy and fratricide, to defeat and eventually to surrender. Now, I want to pause here for a second. Why would someone do that? Why would someone go against their own, right? There could be money involved. That's usually what it comes back to. There could be money involved. And I think that's where we're going to talk about that in a second as well. I repeat, any internal turmoil is a deadly threat to our statehood, to us as a nation. He said, this is a blow to Russia, to our people, and our actions to protect the fatherland from such a great threat will be tough. Now, I want to come out here because that was his speech. Now, this is when corporate media had to come back in and they had to retract what they said before. And that's why I told people how they jumped on this. It says Wagner chief claiming to turn forces around. Now, keep in mind, before this, they had already said that the city, Moscow, had been taken over. This is what they told people yesterday. It was taken over. Oh my God, they're about to take them down. Woohoo, we won. And then they had to come back and say this. How embarrassing.
Let's begin with this breaking news. The head of the mercenary Wagner group, Yevgeny Prigozhin, says he is calling off his troops from their march on Moscow, potentially ending what appeared to be a possible coup attempt. Officials in Belarus claim their president, Alexander Lukashenko, had reached a deal with the Wagner boss to halt his troops. Prigozhin says his private army had seized control of Russian military facilities in two critical cities, Rostov-on-Don, that's about 700 miles south of Moscow, and the city of Voronezh, about the halfway point on the road to Moscow. President Putin called the actions by Prigozhin a betrayal and a stab in the back to the Russian people and warned those who follow Prigozhin will pay a price. Christian, both confusing, complex, all of
it wouldn't have been confusing if you guys would have just waited to report the story the correct way. That's why there was confusion, because you guys had already told people that they took over the city and there was this coup and you didn't wait. So I'll let her go on a little bit more here, and then I'm going to show you what Max Blumenthal said about this. This is really funny.
This is just a toss up in the air.
Yeah,
amazing.
And actually, General Spider Marks reminded me of Churchill's, long time ago description of Russia as a riddle wrapped up in in an enigma and all the rest of it. In other words, you just don't know until you know. So it looks like Prigozhin was trying to send a message to the Ministry of Defense and to the head of the Russian armed forces. Those people have been his target since the beginning of this war, and he has complained bitterly that they have completely messed up and literally botched the invasion and the war in Ukraine, and that he has presented himself and his independent paramilitary force as the Russian saviors, if you like. And pretty much they are the only ones who have scored any, even though they might be minute, actual battlefield victories. And so it appears that he has now been pressured by Putin, who got Alexander Lukashenko, his big ally in Belarus, to engineer some kind of about face. And according to Prigozhin, that is what has happened. We're waiting to be able to broadcast his latest audio to explain to everybody exactly what he thinks he's doing next. And we've got full coverage on this breaking story. We have CNN Chief International Security Correspondent Nick Payton-Walsh, National Security Reporter Natasha Bertrand, and the former CIA Chief of Russia Operations and CNN National Security Analyst Steve Hall.
They had to come in and really do damage control here because of the information that was previously put out. Ecuadorian Taco says it would appear with an accent, we lied to you peasants. Basically. I love that Ecuadorian Taco.
So Nick, we were on together as this breaking news came of this latest intervention by Prigozhin and his latest Telegram audio message. He having taken a very significant military headquarters in the last 24 hours.
Notice how the vocabulary has changed now. It's no longer a coup, it's intervention.
Do we think now the Prigozhin threat is over?
No, I think it would be premature to suggest that. And indeed, he says the only reason he's turning around his columns on the way to Moscow, having, he says, got 200 kilometers within the city outskirts, is to stop bloodshed. He doesn't make a reference to a negotiation with the president of Belarus. That's done by the Belarusian president's own staff, suggesting that, in fact, Lukashenko intervened after speaking to Putin, and some sort of deal appears to have been hatched. But I don't think we know the entirety of it. It may be that there are going to be significant changes at the head of Russia's Ministry of Defense, but even if the ultimate targets of Prigozhin's march on Moscow end up being removed from their jobs, and that's the Defense Minister Shoigu, the head of the Ukrainian campaign, Gerasimov, and Chief of Staff, still, he's really crossed the Rubicon here, frankly, taking control of Rostov, moving through Voronezh, blockades put into Lipetsk, and putting that kind of military pressure on Putin, causing Putin to make that very stern speech today. It's quite clear that, to me, it will be hard to suddenly put the clock back and have Prigozhin a valued member of the Russian military establishment. So I think...
Look, I want to show you guys something really quick. So this is Prigozhin here, right? He kind of reminds me of he kind of looks like Mike from Breaking Bad. I am not kidding. That's who he kind of reminded me of, Mike from Breaking Bad. Now, Mike could do some pretty cool things on Breaking Bad. I don't think Mike would resort to this level, okay? I don't think Mike would go that far. Now, because so many people rushed to put that information out and it wasn't correct, Max Blumenthal tweeted, why couldn't you and so many other neocon half-wits just shut the fuck up and avoid humiliating yourselves by premature ejaculating over Russia's civil war? So he's referring to, I'll show you this right here. Andrew Kimmel said, "Why the silence tonight?" Max Blumenthal. All right. So these were, some of the people who were ready to come out and make claims. "The odds of you not being a clown are slim to none." And he has a screenshot here. "The odds of this being true are slim to none." And that's where it said Belarusian president held talks with Prigozhin today. Lukashenko says that Prigozhin has agreed to stop the movement of armed persons on the territory of Russia and to take further steps to de-escalate. And he also has a screenshot here. Wagner head says group standing down after claims of deal. So this was the part where a lot of people, especially mainstream media, but people just lost it like yesterday, just immediately knew like, oh, it's over. It's over. This is it. We win. Didn't wait for more information or anything like that. And Max obviously patiently waited. Kim Iverson chimed in and said Russia was in the process of absorbing Wagner Group into the regular armed forces, effectively stripping Prigozhin of the power he's accustomed to. Prigozhin likely demanded a lot of money, was denied it, decided to extort money from the West, and then use that leverage against Putin for an even larger payout. Now Prigozhin is likely a billionaire, and Wagner is absorbed into the military. Everyone wins. Even the West wins with the narrative that Russia is weaker. Literally everyone got what they wanted. I think Kim is right. I think she hit the nail on the head. At the end of the day, no one really lost. Just something to think about, because mainstream media is not going to tell you that. They are not framing it that way at all. It was interesting how quickly people had to come back and say, "We are live again. Breaking news. I just want to change my statement. It appears there's no coup after all." That's why I don't jump onto camera the moment a story breaks, because things do change over time. Yeah. So that was yesterday. We'll continue following this story to see if more changes do develop. But the lesson to be learned here, guys, is sometimes it's good to just wait a bit.